The Holy Gospel is written in the 21st chapter of St. Luke, beginning at the 5th verse. Now, when some people were speaking about the temple, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and gifts dedicated to God, Jesus said, "As for these things that you see, the days will come when not one stone will be left upon another. All will be thrown down." And they asked him, "Teacher, when will this be? And what will be the sign that this is about to take place?" And he said, "Beware that you are not led astray, for many will come in my name and say, 'I am he,' and the time is near. Do not go after them." When you hear of wars, the insurrections, do not be terrified, for these things must take place first, but the end will not follow immediately. Then he said to them, "Nation will rise up against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and plagues, and there will be dreadful portents and great signs from heaven. But before all this occurs, they will arrest you and persecute you. They will hand you over to the synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors because of my name. This will give you an opportunity to testify. So make up your minds not to prepare your defense in advance, for I will give you the words and a wisdom that none of your opponents will be able to withstand or contradict. You will be betrayed, even by parents and brothers, by relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death. You will be hated by all because of my name, but not a hair of your head will perish. By your endurance, you will gain your souls." Here ends the gospel for the day. Please be seated. 1971, there was a song that reached almost the top of the charts. It was sung by a woman by the name of Melanie. That's the way she sung, under name she sung. She had an album at that time called A Good Book. And I was so impressed by the lyrics of one of the songs because I thought it so well represented the why individuals, organizations fail. It was called the Nickel Song. I thought, this will be a good sermon someday, but I've used it more than once. But the words go something like this. Well, they go exactly like this. "Well, you know that I'm not a gambler, but I'm being gambled on. They put in a nickel and I sing a little song. Well, I don't mind that they're lucky, but it seems that they always win. And gambling is illegal in the state of mind I'm in. And if I had a nickel for each time that I've been put on, I would be their nickel man, and I'd sing a little song. They're only putting in a nickel, and they want a dollar song. They're only putting in a little to get rid of a lot that's wrong. Well, I don't know so many things, but I know it's been going on. We've all been putting in a little to get rid of a lot that's wrong. And if we had a nickel for each time that we've been put on, we'd all be their nickel man and we'd sing a nickel song. But you know, they're only putting in a nickel and they want a dollar song. The theme that we have for this morning is we're only putting in a nickel and we want a dollar song. It seems to be the theme of what Paul is writing about in 2 Thessalonians. Now, Brian Tracy, in his book, Universal Laws of Success and Achievement, says that evidently the desire to put very little in for expecting a lot out is a mark of those that achieve in life. As a matter of fact, he says it's a universal condition, a universal trait, and one can always expect people to operate under those rules. He made 3 quotes. He said, people always seek to get things with the least effort or expenditure. People are inherently lazy, and they will seek the path of least resistance. People seek the highest possible return for the expenditures of time, money, effort, and resources. Maybe it is wise that we are people who are nickel people who are expecting a dollar song. Don't we operate this so much of the time? I guess sometimes we'd consider it a real good characteristic to have. I guess when I go in to shop for a car, that's the way I operate. I don't have any brand loyalties, so when I go in to see a dealer and they ask me exactly what I want, knowing that they want exactly those things that I'm looking for so they can narrow in on what I'm looking for, I always confuse them and frustrate them by saying what I want. And usually I say that. It's a matter of cost to value. I want the most that I can get for the best possible price. I'm shopping. Can we narrow it down a little more than that? No. What are the things that you absolutely have to have? Well, I can't answer that either, because it always matters how much it costs into what value it has. I think that's wise shopping, to kind of look for those things that cost the least where I get the most value. The problem comes when we operate in other aspects of life this way. And it seems that so many organizations and so much of the time we come up short because we're really not willing to contribute anything in exchange for the real benefits we get. The organizations today are suffering. Look at the political spectrum. Wasting so much time on things that seem irrelevant. Is the purpose they're there to wind up contributing very little to the welfare of the masses that they are serving? Or is it to get some kind of political gain for contributing very little to the mass? Clubs complain of commitment today. People are just not willing to put in a lot. They want the benefits of what the group offers, but they want to get it away with as little as they can contribute. There are some organizations that have never in the past had to advertise for member, and today are definitely going to have to do that if they're going to stay alive. And the organizations that do fail because people are expecting to put in a nickel and to get a dollar song. This happens so much in relationships too, doesn't it? Relationships are hard. They're difficult. They take a lot of commitment. They take a lot of work. And somehow we seem that we think that we can get a lot without putting much into it. And sometimes we seek those kind of relationships. Relationships are a matter of giving, and giving the most we possibly can without the expectation of much in return. Isn't that the way Jesus told us to operate? Give not because you're expecting a lot back, but give all that you have without expectation of anything at all. Those operate so contrary to the condition of mankind. Social media emphasizes this. We can go on and put something about ourselves on Facebook and draw fans. Not because in any way we want to help somebody else, but so that people can get an idea of what we're doing. and be jubilant in those things that we accomplish or things that we present that seem to be noteworthy. I heard one person explain the golden rule. He said the golden rule shouldn't be do unto others as you would have others to do unto you. He said you do unto others as they would have you do to them. Sometimes we think everybody operates the same way we do. And we treat them that way. And sometimes their needs are far different than ours. And the message is that we should really examine the needs of others and examine what we can help them with. And in that way we can really have a golden rule. But all too often in our relationships, we're only putting in a little to get rid of a lot that's wrong. We're only putting in a nickel, and we want $1 song. But our text this morning from the gospel lesson, or from the epistle lesson, is one that is almost shocking. Paul spent his lifetime setting up churches. He established the churches. He instructed them in what they needed to do to remain relevant to the community and to bring people into the fellowship. And it was not based on giving as little as you could. It was being committed to giving as much as you could so the community of church would prosper. And he would write back to the churches, and that is what he's doing in the second letter to the Thessalonians. He'd written them a first letter instructing them on what they were supposed to do, and he got a letter back saying that there were a lot of people sloughing off. They really weren't concerned. And so he writes this letter. And I want to read from the message, that epistle text for today, because it brings it down into understandable terms for us. Our orders, backed up by the Master Jesus, are to refuse to have anything to do with those of you who are lazy and refuse to work the way we taught you. Don't permit them to freeload on the rest. We showed you how to pull your weight when we were with you, so get on with it. We didn't sit around on our hands expecting others to take care of us. In fact, we worked our fingers to the bone up half the night moonlighting so you wouldn't be burdened by taking care of us. And it wasn't because we didn't have a right to your support. We did. We simply wanted to provide you an example of diligence, hoping it would prove contagious. Don't you remember the rule we had when we lived with you? If you don't work, you don't eat. I said that would sell well here when we were at text class. And now we're getting reports a bunch of you are good-for-nothings taking advantage of you. This must not be tolerated. We recommend to get to work immediately. No excuses, no arguments, and their own or keep. Don't slack off on doing your duty. That almost seems non-Christian. Certainly doesn't seem Pauline. But sometimes you get frustrated when you try to understand that an organization needs the help of everyone committed as totally as they can. When the Second World was over, Roosevelt and Churchill and Stalin met together to plan the future. Churchill and Roosevelt would set up things and they'd present it to Joe Stalin, and Stalin would always negate it. He only sought what was good for his own country, not for what was good for the world. And Churchill and Roosevelt got a little impatient with him. And they would present something, and he would negate it, and they'd say, well, how can you do that? Obviously, you can't be against that. What's your excuse? And Stalin said, I'll tell you a story. There were two Arabs, and one of them wanted to borrow a rope from the other one. And he said, can I borrow your rope? And the other person said, no. I got to keep it to lead my camel. The first one said, you don't have a camel. How can you need it for your camel? That's not a good excuse. Why did you say that? Well, he said, if you're going to use an excuse, I guess one excuse is as good as the other. Sometimes in the church, we tremble because the future doesn't bode so well for us. I've told you about a survey that our seminary has done on the future of denominational churches in 30 years. Say most of them will basically be disappearing. The danger for us isn't being attacked from the outside, Paul says. The danger is when we don't find enough commitment in ourselves to put ourselves totally into what we're doing. We want to put in only a nickel and expect a dollar song. This is probably not the group to be speaking this piece to, because the people that are here are the most contagious as far as doing the work of the church. I guess maybe more than anything else, we need to remind ourselves that only 20% of the people do the work of the church. The other 80% sit on their hands. But the response is not to be weary in this task. It is part of our commitment in our following of Jesus Christ. For we understood that he put himself totally into the work of salvation to the point of crucifixion. And he turns to us and says, put in $1 and expect a nickel song. That's the message of the gospel text, you know. He says, you will work diligently, and you will be betrayed. You will be persecuted. They will hand you over to the synagogues and prison. You will be brought before kings and governors and because of my name. Make up your minds not to prepare your defense in advance, for I will give you the words and the wisdom that none of your opponents will be able to withstand or counterdict. The message is, put in $1 and expect just a nickel song. Amen.